One, two, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, hello, test. Amazing, thank you. Hello, 1, 2. Feels like might have to go right on.
Talking about
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Chris. Sam.
Hi.
Sam.
One, two, guys.
My wife's right, my grandfather's Italian. Yeah, so I kind of very nice. You have to give you I'll be using them in the car. Do you know who I am?
Don't show a picture of America.
The bill would go up 25%.
Next year. Next year it's also a safety. There is no one. See you later.
Yes, I will. Yeah. Right, Jake. 10:10 is where we. So I got to start. I got to do the introduction now.
Come on yesterday, huh?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
This is how very.
Good morning, everyone. Can we have some silence, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry this kind of lovely to see you all, and welcome to the Pivotal Links 2024. Mel, how many have you had so far?
How many?
Links.
11th.
This is the 11th. I said 15 the other day, but I got it completely wrong because we haven't been going for that many years. But welcome to everybody. I just want to do a brief introduction. If you see any of those people, they're all members of the Pivotal Scientific team. Most of them are here today, so just grab one of those. I think we have special white
lanyards.
lanyards, so if you need any help with being introduced to people, just find one of us. And this is the agenda for today. So you've got your coffee already. I'm doing the welcome introduction now, a bit of housekeeping. And then we've got 8 presentations, and they're called speed presentations. So they'll be about 7 minutes each. We can have questions as part of that, but I suggest you have your questions afterwards and try and find those people to talk to later on during the next 2 days. We then go for full networking. So basically from 11 o'clock onwards, we're networking. Now we've got this new app we've used for the first time this year. We've had a few teething problems with it, but I hope you've managed to find people to meet with. What you should do is sometimes people have got tables, so you try and find them on their tables. If it's with me, you've got meetings, I've got a little room in the reception, it's called the Glass Box. I'm in there, but other people will see them in various sofas, various parts of the hotel. So feel free to go anywhere to have your meetings. They are 20-minute slots, so try and stick to that so you can see as many people as possible. Lunch is served in the restaurant this year. People who normally have lunch in here, but it's going to be in the restaurant, which is upstairs. So please make your way up there at lunchtime. It's a buffet, so you can go up there for as little or as long as you like. You can do networking up there as well. The networking will finish at 5 o'clock. So feel free after 5 o'clock to hang around. If you're staying for dinner, which is at 7 o'clock, you can carry on networking after 5, but we will ask you to leave. This room you can use, but the room over there where the networking tables are, we're going to clear that out for the dinner so that they can prepare for the dinner. And the gala dinner is between 7 and 11 o'clock, and that's if you've got tickets for that, that's where we'll be. One thing I just want to make out that on tomorrow's day is much simpler, basically coffee and networking. And lunch as well. So there's we're not doing presentations, right? It's just networking to finish off. If you see on the badges, you will see some people have got a gold star. What that means is that they are Pivotal Alliance member. Okay, now Pivotal Alliance members, there's 105 of them. Hopefully we got it right. Hopefully we got it right. Linda will do the gold star. That means that people who are Pivotal Alliance members, you will have received 1 free ticket for the whole 2-day event, including gala dinner. So if you're not a Pivotal Alliance member and you want to save money next year, then please join up and that will help you get a free ticket for this event next year. Just general information, fire alarms. Now there will be a fire alarm at 11 o'clock today. 30 seconds, ignore it, it's not the real one, okay? But you would receive to muster points, which are highlighted at fire doors normally, but ignore the one at 11 o'clock. You've seen the washrooms, they're in the main atrium, they're in the main part of the hotel. Lunch I've already mentioned, tea and coffee is available all day long, so just go to the various stations and help yourself. And there is a car park fee that some of you might have seen. You would have got a ticket when you came in, and that will need to be unfortunately paid when you leave. I'm not sure how expensive it is.
I think it's £65 for the day.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, there's a car park fee that they charge. I hope you all have a great day of networking. Now I am going to introduce the first presentation. Oh, sorry, first of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors, you can't forget that. So the sponsors, the platinum sponsor is Biazol and Gold's TB Scientific and ARP. Thank you so much. And then also for the other sponsors, BioCompare, Cloud Clone, Wenham Carter and James Cowper Preston. Really appreciate your sponsorship, and it allows us to put on a really, really good day for everybody. So thank you to the sponsors. Please visit their booths. Most of them have got a booth in there and say hello. Right, now I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Sorsha, who's going to tell you a little bit about the antibody report.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks Tim for your introduction. My name is Sorsha Herman, and I'm the business analyst at Pivotal, working as part of the wider M&A team. Good stuff. And what that means is I spend a lot of my time looking at data and using it to generate insight. And insight is something that Pivotal trade on, what we see on a regular basis, both internally with our team of consultants, all experts in their own rights with lots of years' experience in the industry, and externally in our client-facing projects. Many of you are here today. And what that means is that we're in a really good position to give our interpretation of the research antibody market, which has helped us create our research antibody market analysis, or RAMA for short, it's a bit of a mouthful. which is about analysing the market for antibodies designated for research use only at the point of sale. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So taking all of these sources and both a top-down and bottom-up approach to market sizing, where many other reports fail to do so, we've come up with our interpretation of the market, what we believe to be a true reflection of the market today, and that is the difference. Helping us to establish that we anticipate over $700 million of opportunity to be generated within the next 2 years. Now, this may seem like a random number plucked out of thin air, as it often does when it comes to market sizing. However, we believe this to be a material opportunity that we aim to help you get a piece of. And with a 7.46% growth rate and the potential for this to increase in the future, the question is not whether the market is growing, but in which direction. Establishing what is changing is the best way to capitalise on this. Our market is propelled forward by the provision of quality reagents, a topic that many of you will recognise as a major focal point in our industry in recent years, for vendors and for end users alike. Antibody validation and associated product performance is key and used by many to set themselves apart from their competitors. The opportunity for your business from a well-validated offering includes strengthening your market position, building your brand reputation, and also providing you the option to move into adjacent markets with your existing clones. Diagnostics, of course, accelerated during the pandemic, opening up a whole new arena of opportunity for RUO players able to provide well-validated antibodies into the IVD sector. Within the market, we continue to see an overlap between the RUO and IVD customer bases, meaning that opportunity lies in serving both segments. Broadly speaking, the market is observing a shift towards recombinantly produced monoclonals, addressing several pain points that researchers face. However, the relevance of traditionally produced antibodies, like polyclonals, is still maintained. We see lots of clients continuing to see strong growth in this space. Discovery, the capacity to take a targeted approach to new product development, is another capability set that is driving market growth and has also been seen as increasingly attractive to those looking to acquire companies within our industry. But opportunity does not come without its challenges. There is an inherent trade-off between quality and cost. Development and manufacturing costs, and yes, we mean ISO 9001 and 13485, are inherently expensive and often mean that the price of a well-validated antibody can be too high for many. However, we're seeing these practices become more entrenched, which will hopefully continue to see that price point come down, improving accessibility to end users. With the rise of platform entities, largely private equity driven, but also from independent players, our market is also becoming increasingly consolidated. This can be great for many, for example, if you're at exit. However, for smaller companies looking to effectively compete and disrupt the market, it can be challenging, which for many of you as owner-operated may understand. The importance of specialists, those providing excellent technical support, as well as products that truly work, cannot be understated. Along with the rest of the world, our industry has also been faced with the broader macroeconomic shocks of recent years, impacting across research funding, across supply chain cost and disruption, tightening end user budgets, as well as the cost of antibody production itself. We recognise that pressure exists on the market in both directions, which is exactly why reports like ours matter. What I really want you to take away from this presentation is that all of these factors mean that customer purchasing behaviour is also changing. What customers demand when buying, the level of validation data, the technical support, the delivery time is all shifting, as well as the way in which customers buy product, meaning that a dynamic go-to-market strategy is key. As customers change, would you say you're changing your strategy in line with this? And how can you get a piece of the $700 million pie benchmark? How does your company perform against the 7.46% growth you've outlined? If it's above, then congratulations, that's pretty amazing. But how do you plan to sustain that long term? If it's below, what can you implement to try and kickstart some of your sales? Adapt. we see it's increasingly relevant to be proactive rather than reactive in your operations to capitalise on the opportunity. And finally, to anticipate. How many products have you launched that have failed to gain traction? It can be quite difficult to know which direction to take your company's strategy, meaning that actively engaging with insight, whether that be third-party reports or communicating with peers, or just monitoring your own trends within your business, can be really helpful in determining where to go next. But this can be a bit confusing, and especially when you're running your day-to-day operations, meaning you might need external support, which is exactly where Pivotal can help. Our report, for example, can help you today and in your future strategy. But we also offer a range of flexible solutions, all aiming to help you get a piece of a $700 million pie. If you've got any questions, please find myself or any of the PSL team around the conference, and we'll be happy to talk to you about this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sorcha, for that. You did it in 6 minutes. Incredible. I'd like to introduce you to Laurie Stephen, Ampersand Biosciences, who's going to do a presentation.
Thank you.
For the next bit.
Okay. And that just,
Yes.
okay.
Close, yeah.
Thank you. Hi, so my name is Laurie Stephen. I'm the president and owner of Ampersand Biosciences. And our specialty is developing multiplex biomarker immunoassays. So we are located in the beautiful upstate New York, and that's our building right there. It's an old school that we moved into a few years ago and renovated. We've been in business, can you hear me okay? Since 2015. But prior to that, we had a company, we worked for Upstate Biotechnology, and we were the first group to launch Luminex assays. Since then, my team worked with, we moved on from Upstate Biotechnology, we went to Rules Based Medicine, RBM. We were a part of them for about 10 years. And then we started our own company to continue the what we know best, which is multiplex immunoassays. So we make proteins, we make monoclonal polypeptide antibodies, we actually outsource those, we don't have any animals. And we currently make and sell multiplex kits for mouse, rat, hamster, canine, and ferret, mainly cytokines. And we do a lot of custom assay development and sample testing for clients worldwide. So we recently developed a ferret panel, and we did that in collaboration with the Trudeau Institute. They specialize in different diseases like influenza. And ferrets are a really good model for influenza because unlike mice, they sneeze and they spread, they spread virus. So they're an upcoming model in virus research in a lot of different other areas right now. A lot of people are starting to use ferrets more and more. So what are the multiplex advantages, which are, basically the small sample volume. So using mice, you can, do a lot with a small amount of sample. And it saves assay labor. We can measure, 13 analytes at once. And we mainly use Luminex, but we've also used other platforms. So, they translate well from platform to platform. If you're using antibodies for one, they generally work well with the other platforms as well. So the disadvantages is that it's more complicated to optimize, and that's kind of, I was going to show you an example of that today, and how we come around that. So we have a client who wanted to get away from using a polyclonal detection. So you can see the yellow one was where we looked. So we bought a whole bunch of commercial antibodies. We couple the, on blue, we couple the, so blue ones are the catcher, they're on the beat. And then the detection is biotitulated and we come back. So, is that a pointer? We don't want a pointer. We don't, sorry, it's not a
I
pointer.
think it might be the little one.
There we go, yeah, that makes sense. So this is our control. We then do a stimulated sample to get native cytokines, and we compare the other ones. So we were able to get pretty similar sensitivity for the IL-6. So we moved forward with that. And then we did that for a whole bunch of other analytes that they had. We put them together, we use them, we do different types of blockers and serums, and in order to really make sure it works together, we'll do multiplex speeds, multiplex standard on a sample, and these are single detection to show that they're not picking up anything else. So that's critical in assay development, making sure you're picking up what you want to pick up, making sure you're measuring, the actual protein and not just a recombinant protein. So we do the same type of thing. We do single detection, single standard, make sure they're all playing well together. If they don't, sometimes we'll have to substitute antibodies. Sometimes we can block it out with different serums, different proteins. We then go through and try and make multiplex controls, and these are different stimulated conditions. In order to be able to have good lot-to-lot sensitivity and lot-to-lot reproducibility. In this case, we'll do things like with the IL-6, we'll run it over an IL-6 column antibody to try and deplete IL-6 to make controls that we can use for reproducibility. So why I'm here really is to look for people that want to collaborate. So if you have clients that are looking to create multiplex assays that we can partner on, we're certainly happy to do that, and would look to do that and work together. If there's new multiplex platforms where you're looking for content, we certainly have a lot of content experience, and we're also happy to partner with that. And if you have antibodies that you think would work well as a multiplex platform solution, love to work together with you as well in that kind of capacity. So I think that's it.
That was great. Next, I'm going to invite up Sally and Gail from Gardner Leader, a legal company, who's going to give advice and tips about how to prepare for sale. Yeah, that one will take on. That's it.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm Sally Addis, a partner in the corporate, commercial and life sciences team at Gardner Leader, a leading law firm in the Thames Valley. I started my career in corporate law about 30 years ago, started in the City of London, then worked in Hong Kong, back to London, and then for the past 15 years, I led my own law firm in Oxford. So I've got to know the Oxford market very well. For the past year, I've been leading the Gardner Leader team here in Oxford and expanding our office here. I've had the pleasure of working with life sciences companies, many different entities, including universities, investors and entrepreneurs across various different transactions like spin-outs, Series A investments, secondary financing, and of course, most importantly for entrepreneurs, the actual exit itself. In my experience, the Oxford market is rather different, and I think it's because the entities here are working in a discrete ecosystem, which is different to other sectors, and as a result, transactions here are different to other commercial transactions. As an outsider, that can sometimes be confusing, and in my view, it pays to have local knowledge and local lawyers who really do understand the market here. So I'd like to pass over now to my colleague Gail, who is heading up our life sciences team. But also just to let you know before I do that we have got a table in the second room back there. So we'd be delighted if anybody wants to come and talk to us today. We're here today and this evening.
Morning. As Sally kindly said, my name is Gail Bellis. I'm a corporate solicitor. I also head up the life sciences team at Gardner Leader. Before we go on to starting, I'll give you 2 seconds about me too. My corporate career began in life sciences. I didn't start as a lawyer to start with. I didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer to start with. So I started in administration for a company in Science Park here in Oxford. That company went through quite some change in just a few years. It was bought by Millipore. Millipore merged with Merck, and Merck sold my business unit then to Eurofins. It opened up lots of opportunity for me, and I ended up working in contract management, project management. And it was here that my love of life sciences was truly cultivated. I got to see the amazing work that this industry does and the way that you change lives every single day. I then moved back to the in-house legal team at Merck, and alongside my day job, providing advice to the business units in the UK and Ireland, I provided the UK legal input on the integration of Sigma-Aldrich, which is $17 billion, is still the largest acquisition in Merck Group history. Now, we're not all going to sell businesses for $17 billion, but if you do have a business, you likely want to maximise the value that you get for it.
As you can see from this slide, a sale of shares and exit is a long and complex process, and preparing for it and the process itself is not to be underestimated. When I'm acting for clients on a sale, more than on a purchase, particularly on a sale, where I'm acting for entrepreneurs, often it's the first time they've been through this process. They say to me that it's the most stressful thing they've ever done. And how do you do it every day? And I say, well, I do it every day, and so it's not so stressful. But you know, key to this is to prepare and be prepared.
As Sally says, preparation is everything. We say that selling a business is a full-time job. I think Pivotal in their M&A role can probably attest to this. The problem is you already have a full-time job. But the sale process is not the time to take your eye off the ball on the business, because a buyer will not be afraid to renegotiate the price during the sale process itself if they see detrimental changes. So what we're really here to talk to you about today is the things that you can do in advance to give yourself the best chance with your buyer.
And one of the keys to that is to bring your advisors in early, not just corporate finance, but also accountants and lawyers, to bring them early in the process. So that you know what is coming, you know how to be prepared, you can appear professional, and you can ensure that the other side knows that you're a force to be reckoned with. And a very good anecdotal example of this is where I acted for the buyer, and the seller appeared on the very first all parties call, and had a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. And you know, that was the first and last all parties.
So the final point we have for you this morning is due diligence. Due diligence is a huge process. The buyer is going to ask you hundreds of questions in order to ascertain if they're getting what they think they're getting for the money that they're paying. But the beauty of this process is we know the vast majority of the questions your buyer will ask you will be the same or very similar to questions another buyer would ask, which means you can pull a lot of this information together in advance. Aside from giving you time to also be working on your business during the sale process, it will help you identify gaps. It doesn't matter how well run a business is, there will be gaps. And it is so much better if you can find them with plenty of time to fix them than the buyer finding them. If it's big, you can use them all together. It could simply just delay the deal. But in a lot of cases we see the buyer asks for a price reduction, or they ask for indemnities, which means you may have to give some of your money back later. And clearly, our aim here is not just to maximise value, but to keep it all. So with that in mind, if anybody is considering this in the next 5 or 10 years, we're very happy to talk to you today about the sorts of things that you can be thinking about now based on your specific circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail and Sally. I'd now like to invite to stage John Morsman from Columbia Biosciences, and John's going to tell us all about Columbia Biosciences. And John, I just want to say one thing about John. He's just put something on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. This time last year, he met with a company called Alpha Theory. Oh God, I've got the wrong one. John,
I can go with that.
you might sit down, John. John, I'll say that till later. Sorry. I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Ian Wilkinson, Dr. Wilkinson from Gamma Proteins. He's going to tell us all about Gamma Proteins. Ian. And also, Ian, I think you'll probably remember Gail, well, certainly remember Gail from the sale of Gail.
Good morning, everyone. I was going to say thank you for the introduction, but so Gamma Proteins is a new company that I founded 6 months ago. We specialise in the supply of recombinant proteins, in particular FC receptors. So today I'm going to walk you through my view of the recombinant protein market and how I believe a tiny startup can be successful in an already crowded market space. First, though, I want to introduce you to what FC receptors are and why we focus on them. So my background is therapeutic antibodies. And when most people think about antibodies, they think about target specificity. And if all you're doing is using the antibody in vitro, then that's probably okay. However, once you go in vivo, the bottom half of the antibody, known as the FC domain, becomes critical. Antibodies act like a laser guidance system. They light up the target of interest in the body, and then the rest of the immune system comes in to kill the cancer cell, bacteria, virus, whatever it may be. And it's the FC domain that drives this by interacting with receptors on the surface of those immune cells, and then the immune cells kill whatever the antibody is bound to. The other important protein is FcRn. The vast majority of drugs have a very short half-life. They're removed from the body in a matter of hours. That's why you take your painkillers and your antibiotics every 4 hours. Antibodies are different. Antibodies last for weeks in the body. This is because they bind to FcRn, which is a recycling receptor. So the bottom line is, if you're a therapeutic antibody developer, which is now a $250 billion market, then understanding how your antibody interacts with these FC receptors is just as critical to the performance of your antibody as the target specificity. So changing tack, this is the recombinant protein market. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's fairly large and it's growing at a CAGR of about 10%. It's dominated by some large organizations who sell not only recombinant proteins, but also antibodies, peptides, ELISA kits, etc. The numbers below each logo are the number of recombinant proteins advertised on each of their websites. These run into the thousands and tens of thousands. None of these can be thought of as niche suppliers. And at first glance, you would say that this seems to be a fairly impenetrable market. We can view this differently, though, if we look at cost of the protein per milligram and quality of the protein as determined by the amount of validation data provided on each of their websites. And now it starts to look a bit different, and most of these companies cluster into this bottom right-hand corner. High cost, relatively low quality. And I would say this is because they're playing the numbers game. Most suppliers run by the rule that 80% of revenue comes from 20% of products. So they know by adding more and more products, eventually they find something that sells well. I would argue that most of these suppliers are not particularly interested in FC receptors. I say this because they don't appear in Google searches for them, they don't have Google AdWords for them, and some of the products are difficult, if not impossible, to find on their own websites. Then in 2010, we had two new players that entered the market, Acro and Sino. They brought lower cost and higher quality. This has been an extremely successful strategy for both of them. And so this leads me to the conclusion that I believe most scientists follow this green arrow when purchasing recombinant proteins. First and foremost, they look for quality. But once you reach a certain quality threshold, then they start to move left and look for better value. And so I believe there's an opportunity for a niche supplier to occupy the top left-hand corner. And I believe that the combination of quality, value, and focus can lead to success in what initially appeared to be a crowded market space. And this isn't a new idea. Back in 1988, Pepritech was founded by three scientists with a vision to create high-quality, affordable cytokines. And I believe the key to their success was that at the point they sold for $2 billion, they still only had 500 products on their portfolio. They remained relatively niche, and that drove incredible growth. Now, the founding of Gamma Proteins comes at a difficult time for our industry. In the last 18 months, bankruptcies and redundancies have been at an all-time high, and funding, whether it's public or private, has dropped off a cliff. Now, more than ever, scientists are being forced to be incredibly cost-sensitive. They're looking for the best value products and services, but importantly, without diminishing the quality of their work. So when I had the vision for Gamma Proteins, I decided that really I wanted to be selling protein at about a third of the price of anybody else in the world. How's that achievable? First, you have to remain niche. You can't have a long tail of low-selling products that impact your overheads. Secondly, you have to take advantage of all the advances in recombinant protein manufacturing and apply it in a way that really nobody else in this sector has done so yet. And that's my background from Absolute Antibody. We built a world-leading mammalian manufacturing platform for antibodies, and much of that same process can be applied to any protein. The cost of DNA sequencing and gene synthesis has fallen by over 100-fold in 20 years, and the productivity of mammalian expression has gone up by more than that in the same time period. So if you combine those two things with smart automation, then suddenly you have a very efficient manufacturing platform. We launched our first products in March of this year. That's all the human Fc gamma receptors and FcRn in both unconjugated and biotinylated forms. And over the coming months and years, we hope to add more products in the Fc receptor range. As a small startup, doing direct sales is challenging, so it's always been part of the plan to work exclusively with distributors. We have North America and most of Europe covered, but today I am very keen to speak to distributors in other regions of the world. And I appreciate I've gone through a lot in 6.5 minutes, so here's the take-home message. Fc receptors are a class of recombinant protein that are critical in the development of therapeutic antibodies. Therapeutic antibody developers screen thousands of antibodies per year, and so can go through a large amount of Fc receptor in routine assays. There are many existing suppliers out there, but cost is high and quality is variable. Our mission is to put quality and value for money at the heart of everything that we do, so we can become the go-to supplier for Fc receptors. Thank you.
Ian's available for conversations during the day. I'm sure lots of people will come and see you. I'm going to make sure who's next, actually. Columbia Biosciences, thank you very much. That's great. I'll come back with John. John's going to tell you all about it. I was going to tell last year, John was here. We met up with a company called Alpha Thera, and I don't think you're here today. And he's now got a range of products with them. You might be talking about it.
Yes, I will. I sure will.
Thank you, John.
All right, which is the forward
That one is that, and the one in the middle is the.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for having us here. My voice projects pretty well, so I probably understand. Columbia Biosciences is a company I started in 2007. It was a spin-off out of a successful biotech company that had over $1 billion exit. Back when $1 billion was a lot of money. We manufacture the base fluorescent dyes, PE, APC, and PERCP. These are fluorescent proteins used in flow cytometry. Supply about half the world market, all the major manufacturers. And we basically have some other dyes coming out in that area for the spectral flow market over the next couple of months. And they're going to be released with some of the bigger flow cytometry houses. But, you know, they're available for everybody to use. So they're going to come out. So stay tuned on the new fluorescent dye front. What I really want to talk about today is the other part of our business is we supply critical reagents to CROs, pharma, biotech companies. And that's really using conjugated antibodies. And what we found is, you know, we've turned, just by conjugating these complicated proteins to antibodies, really had to learn how to conjugate things well. And in doing that, you know, now we have people come to us to fix their reagents, you know, that they have a conjugate from someplace, inconsistency, just to Ian's point, that you know, that there's a level of quality that really has to come up in the conjugated antibody space. And that's really what we're trying to do now is basically how do we make really, really good conjugates? We can skip this one. So what makes a good conjugate? You know, and these are kind of, you know, just easy stuff that's out here. You know, you want a clear signal, you want a low background, you want it appropriately labeled, you don't want it under-labeled or over-labeled, but you know, you want the pRA just right. You need a good purity in your conjugates. You need to really eliminate a lot of the unreacted products. It causes a lot of disruptions in the immunoassays. And when people are going with critical reagents, your lot-to-lot consistency isn't there. It causes them a lot of trouble. One other thing we see is, you know, aggregations in antibodies. So if you have aggregates in your antibodies and then you take them and you conjugate them, and then they go downstream to the next step, it causes, off-target staining, causes high background. And, you really have to have good, clean antibodies before you conjugate them to make a good reagent. And if you're doing, protein conjugates, which are more complicated, like HRP or PE, you basically want to make them a reasonable size to the assay that you're doing. And right now, things are done in kind of a stochastic manner, and you could have a HRP conjugate that's, 200,000 molecular weight, or you could have one that's like 3 or 4 million molecular weight. Really changes the sensitivity and the dynamic range of your assays. And if you really don't have the right characterization of what you're doing, you have you get a lot of inconsistency. So what we look at is physical characterization. What do we actually make physically? And then let's look at the activity. And when you marry those two things together, you get consistent, scalable, and stable. So, just going through this process over the last 4 or 5 years and fixing a number of critical reagents, and actually made a second business out of it, where we just solve this stuff constantly. What we want to do is basically figure out how to, consistently make reagents. And what we do is basically, we'll take a variety of different chemistries. We're working with dyes, pick the right dye for the right application. Want to make sure you characterize your conjugate when it's done. Is the concentration right? Half the time the concentration's wrong. Is the purity good? Is the degree of labeling there? And is the size distribution and aggregate removal there? And those are things you really have to look at when you characterize, a conjugate. And then you can kind of scale it up. And if it looks the same, you could do SEC, HPLC, you could do high-res, mass spec, do a lot of different characterization. But if you don't put those steps in, it basically causes a lot of trouble, later on. So what we do is basically do conjugates for a number of antibody houses now, where they send their antibodies, we conjugate them, we characterize them. We could sit down and say, this is what we made, this is what it looks like, physically. The activity looks good, you marry the two together, and then you have a good product. And generally, when you do it right, it's very stable. If you do it wrong, and you generate a lot of aggregates and a lot of, even if they're soluble aggregates, they tend to aggregate more over time. So what we really want to do is just basically, put together a good product, and then generally everything else takes care of itself. We do support large multi-center CAR-T clinical trials, and on the reagent side, we have had 2, and a number of just where they just really need high quality conjugates. So I was going to lastly talk about AlphaThera, and AlphaThera does an FC site-directed chemistry, so you can kind of put your fluorophore or your biotin or whatever you want on the FC region, and how things are done today. It's generally amine labeling, it's stochastic, and you can take an example here where you have the distribution of antibodies by mass spec, and some have 3, some have 4, some have 2, some have 6, some have 0. So if I made an example of, if everybody's in a chair and it has, 4 legs, everybody's happy, right? But how we do things now, if an antibody was a chair, it's going to have 4 legs with a standard deviation of 2, right? So half the audience would be very unhappy if they only had 2 legs on their chair, or 4 tires on an automobile, plus or minus 2. So really what we're striving to do is basically, can we actually make conjugates that consistently, every antibody has the same number of labels in the same spot that come out every time in a consistent way. So just bringing really just manufacturing that we've done for everything else in the world kind of to the antibody business. So this launch with AlphaThera is basically, our first step into this market. We're also looking at, driving the cost of that down so we could scale it up, you know. So it's good to do, you know, if you want an experiment, 100 micrograms, milligrams, good. If I have a multi-year study where I need hundreds of milligrams of conjugate, you know, you want to basically make it the same way. So we're working on technology, you know, beyond the alpha-thera technology to scale that up and then basically, you know, make a consistent product. So make that, you know, here's an example. So these RPE and APC are two fluorophores used in flow a lot. Basically using the alpha-thera technology to put these two proteins right on the FC. You know, they come out, they have between 1 and 2. So the distribution's narrow, it's not perfect yet. And then when you kind of turn around and do SBR, everything's kind of the KD is working in the same order of magnitude as the native antibody, which is what we really wanted to accomplish. So, so I'm around today. I'd love to talk to all the antibody houses and make some conjugates for you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Very interesting. Now we're going to have Chris coming up from Science Catalyst.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, so I'm Chris, Science Catalyst. Our company provides a service where we help distributors move their supplier data out to their customers. Very simple in concept, but very difficult in practice. In fact, so difficult in practice, I hope it gives you headaches and nightmares and keeps you awake at night. Our process begins with the supplier relationship. We work with about 350 different suppliers around the world today already. We like to work directly with the supplier whenever possible. That's of course at your discretion, but whenever we're working directly with the supplier, we get to identify pricing issues, format issues, missing parts of a portfolio, missing shipping. We get to deal with all of those issues directly, and you don't ever even know that an issue has happened. And so it just allows us to be very, very efficient with that. In addition to that, if we see some supplier data that comes in that looks really thin, we'll go and look at their website. If it looks like their website has a whole lot more data, we're gonna go back to them and we're gonna say, what the heck? Can you give us some more data? Give us some more attribution for your stuff so that their product looks better for your customer. So once we've got that data in from the supplier, we begin this intensive analysis and ingestion process. We look at every aspect of the supplier data that comes in and we extract as much intelligence and structure as we possibly can. Sometimes that data is really, really thin. We only get a name, a size, a SKU, and a price. Even under those circumstances, we'll examine that data, we'll extract, we'll parse, we'll piece it apart until we can give you some really good structure. So in this example, you know, we're pulling out a conjugate, we're pulling out a name, we're pulling out lots of structured information that you can make actionable for your customer down the road. In a second example here, we might just get a blob of text in HTML format. We'll dig into that, we'll break it apart, and we'll turn it into really good, solid, structured data for you and for your customer. This is 2 examples of 100 different ways that we'll piece and parse and split apart the data that comes into us. Once we get past that part, we can actually enrich that data. We'll go in, we'll again examine every piece and part of that supplier data in order to create a categorization for you and for your schema. So that you can be pretty confident that that data is showing to the customer in the right place in the right way. If we're given a gene ID or a session number or a UniProt number, we can take those values. We'll go out to NCBI, we'll go out to UniProt, and we'll grab additional information for you. Synonyms is a simple example of that. We'll get that down there and we'll attach it to that product with, again, the idea being that that's going to make it show that much better for your customer. Once we've gotten all of that enrichment done, we've got this data all in our standard model and it's looking pretty good, we can get the export process. And so the first part of that is that goes out through your rules, your standards, your pricing, whatever you need for your data sets. However you name applications, however you name reactivities, however you want to organize your data. You get to construct your own set of rules as a filter for your outputs. It goes through an extremely extensive QA process. We've got an automated QA process, but we also have some final manual checks that go in, so that we are able to guarantee that the data that you get, ideally accurate, complete, first time, every time. You're able to just get that data loaded as fast as possible. We can send that up to you however you like. You need some XML for a university partner? No problem. Maybe some JSON for another third-party catalog? Again, no problem. Some XML or some Excel files for your own website? Again, no problem with that. So that's the deliverable to you. We've got a PIM system that is coming online yet this year. By the end of the summer, we should have the PIM system available to you. Basically, what this boils down to is the product information management. This is your data. You're going to be able to go into the PIM system, and it's going to give you full visibility into your data. You're going to know exactly where we are in our process as we prepare your data. We just received it, it's gotten through this, it looks like this, we're probably going to get it in 24 hours, so it'll come out to you. It gives you full control over that data. You can go in there and make some edits, and you can make those edits sticky, so we'll remember that edit. You didn't like how the supplier named it, you didn't think that the supplier's categorization was accurate, whatever it might be. You can override that, you can make it sticky, we'll remember it, you'll get that same edit back again the next time we process that supplier data. In addition to that, you'll be able to export the data that you need when you want, whenever you want. You get to do it yourself on demand for whatever output needs you have. And then, as long as, oh, we don't have the
Did it not come up?
yeah.
Is it? Jane?
We'll just talk about this. I'll just talk about this. This is supposed to be showing you an active website actually in operation for the company named White Label Distributors. Okay, so basically we also now offer the service of, okay, we've taken your data, we've prepared all of your data, we're going to put it up onto a website that is yours and yours alone. Okay, your colors, your customization, your functions, your features, your logo, everything. It is your website, not some kind of a canned box that you can't touch or change. We focus heavily on search. We want to make sure that as the customer types in whatever they're thinking of, that their product shows up in that top 3, no matter what, first time, every time. If they're looking for a particular target, great, we'll find it. If they're looking for a target and monoclonal and it must have a particular kind of conjugate, then type it, you'll find it. Okay, so we want to make sure that our search is basically as best in class. In addition to all of the really important search functions, we provide all of the other regular old web functions as well, contact forms and content management and super secure transactions and all the other things that go along with that. And if my slide was working, you would have seen all of that just now. So you'll have to just picture it in your head. Okay.
It looks great.
So that's the end of what I have to talk about, but I've got lots of time and I'd love to talk to anybody who's interested in any part of that.
Right, Andy Lane, independent consultant, is going to give us a bit of an interesting talk about customers.
Great, thanks, Tim. So good morning, everybody. Really, I just wanted to take you all back to basics today. I'm not going to talk about any products, I'm just going to get you to think about customers. And really, a lot of you are small companies here, so it's how do you differentiate yourself from the big guys that you think probably can do anything better than you can. To be honest, I think it's really just common sense. But you just sometimes need a reminder when you're doing day-to-day business of what you need to think about. Even Mahatma Gandhi, 130 years ago, was talking about customers. Might not be your most obvious person to go to a quote for. I'm not going to read it out. If you want to know it, I'll go through it again properly later with anybody. Just remember, customers are the most important thing about your business. Remember, they're paying your wages, they're paying everybody's wages. It doesn't matter how great your products, your systems, your mission statements are. If you don't have customers, they're all meaningless. And remember, as a small company, you've got a real advantage. The big guys spend a lot of time thinking about mission statements. I know that, I've been there. They make you forget about the customers just occasionally, if we're all honest. Also, a small company, make sure all of your staff know how important your customers are. You know, it can be anybody, it can be the shipping guy, anybody who answers the phone, the guy in the lab. It's key that they all realise the customers and why they're there. So how do you get to know your customer? Remember, they're not just a number. We're really into the Amazon of life sciences these days, aren't we? We know the big guys have these wonderful websites. You can order everything. You never need to talk to anybody. Just remember, those guys probably aren't talking to their customers who order one product. You've got a real opportunity. You can talk to your customer. You can find out what they need. You can find out about the other things that they're buying from other people. Maybe they can buy them from you. So really, really basics. Talk to them. I think we probably forget to do that quite a lot, don't we? We do it by email. Even better, meet with them. That might be a little bit passé these days, but if you have an opportunity to meet with a customer, you can really find out what they need. And remember who you're talking to. To be absolutely honest, I think it's probably much better to be talking to the end user if you can work out who they are. You don't want to be talking to their purchasing people necessarily. They don't really know what they want. Do you want to talk to their C-level executives? Yeah, you probably do. You might think you do. It looks great on your LinkedIn profile, but do they make the actual buying decisions? See if you can get hold of the end user. That would be my thoughts anyway. Once you're talking to them, how can you build a relationship with them? Products, obviously, or services. Have you got what they need, but as a small company, can you do something that maybe the bigger guys can't? Make them something just a little bit bespoke. Just build on that service opportunity. Can you meet their expectations in other service areas, shipping, etc.? To meet expectations, you've got to know what the expectations are, and you've got to talk to them. Remember, actually shipping to a different address is something that I know from experience some of the big companies might actually struggle with. They'll accidentally ship it to the first address because it's in their system. Get it right as a small company. Can you give your customer access to your specialists, to your scientists, to your R&D directors? Again, difficult for big companies to do, but a customer feels really valued if you can do that in a conversation with them. To some senior people in your company. And most of all, make them understand that they're valued. I've just got a couple of examples, one of how not to do it, one of how to do it, just to get you thinking as we move on to the rest of the day. These are real examples. This is one from earlier this year. And the customer in this case is a company I do a little bit of consultancy for. They were looking to buy an antibody, a reasonably widely available antibody, and making a new assay from it. They want bulk amounts. They approached one of the biggest antibody suppliers in the world for a bulk quote. I don't think they're here today, so none of you need to worry and think about whether it was you. Started well, they got an acknowledgement. They said, specialist team will deal with this. Would you believe that team took 6 weeks to come back? Okay, 6 weeks. And then they came back and they said, we've got a few more questions, 2 weeks, we will get you that quote. Meanwhile, a smaller competitor, much smaller competitor, had responded, quoted in 2 days, they shipped it in 5 days, they had the order. Just remember, think about what you're doing. Don't let the customer be this guy out here, make sure they're somebody right in the middle for you. This is an example of how to do it if you're a small company. Again, real example. Small company, you know you've got one of the top 3 IVD companies as your customer. You only actually know that because you drop ship to them. They do all their purchasing through Fisher. You can never get hold of one of the end users until one day, one of their end users phones you directly, phones the tech support team for a really simple question. That tech support person knew that was an important opportunity, managed to turn that into a conversation with that end user, with the senior commercial teams and actually the scientists in the company. That got a video call, it led to site meetings on both sides, it led to that small company turning that IVD company into their #1 customer, just because they recognised there was an opportunity there. And just to finish, just to get you thinking for the rest of the day, this was a quote by a chap called Theodore Levitt, who wrote quite a lot about marketing in the 80s. So the purpose of a business is to get and keep a customer. Without customers, no amount of engineering wizardry, clever financing or operations expertise can keep a company going. I think that sums everything up I wanted to say, and just leave you to think about that for the rest of the day.
I would like to hear from Polly Tech. Take a last one, don't we? Thank you. Just okay, thank you.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Johan Goetz. I'm the CEO of Polydetech, and it's a big pleasure for me to present my company and our technology, Polydetech. Polydetech is the French company. We are based in Strasbourg, in France. It's very close to Germany and Switzerland. And we are experts in chemistry and biology because we develop and produce a new ultrafluorescent nanoparticles to improve the detection of biomarkers. The idea is very easy to understand. We change the fluorescent probe or the enzymatic product by Polydetect technology. This technology, we have exceptional brightness, optimal signal, because we can delete the background noise from the sun. Also, we can change the color of the nanoparticle for multi-detection, and we can add everything around the nanoparticle, antibody, DNA, etc. So for this technology, we have 3 applications. The first one is the TIRF LISA. It's like the ELISA, but we use the fluorescent for the detection. After we have the lateral flow, we replace gold or latex technology or nanoparticle by Polydetect, and we can quantify on the strip the biomarker. And the last application is TIRF. It's a mix and read method. We have the nanoparticle and your sample, and you can get the results. And now we will launch a new product in multiplexing interpret. We can keep your microplate reader, and we can do multiplexing analysis. So the advantage, we can take the benefits about this technology. So we have 3 fronts. The first one is the performance. We increase the detection sensitivity. After, we can save your time because you have less or no washing step. And also, we can reduce your costs because we use less biological products in your recipe. For which field? Actually, we can add everything around the nanoparticle, DNA, antibody, other proteins, etc. So we can use the technology in every field, like human biomarker, veterinary, food, and environment. So actually, we have some products. We have a catalog. So we offer conjugate antibodies, like labeling kits and some assay in TIRF LISA and TIRF RET. And also we have some services. We can develop for you your assay with our technology, and you can custom your test. Also, we are looking for antibody pairs, partnership for co-development and R&D collaboration, and some investors. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, everybody. We've gone slightly over the time, apologies about that, but off you go to your networking. And don't forget, lunch is at 1 o'clock in the restaurant upstairs. It'll be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Relax now.